At the 5:09 mark of the fourth quarter, the Rockets trailed by just 1 point, 84-85. Şengün stepped to the line for two crucial free throws, a golden opportunity to reclaim the lead, but he missed them both. Still, those misses weren't the true turning point of the game. The real collapse came from what the Rockets did, or failed to do, on offense from that moment until the final buzzer. Following Şengün's missed free throws, the Rockets turned the ball over 3 times and shot just 3 for 9 from the field. And it wasn't just the inefficiency, it was how they played. Instead of sticking to the offensive actions that had powered their success earlier in Game 3, and even throughout the series, the Rockets abandoned their strengths. They shifted away from the sets that had been working and leaned into ones that played right into Golden State's hands. Let's rewind to just before Şengün's trip to the free throw line. On the possession leading up to the foul, Houston executed a simple pick and roll between Jalen Green and Şengün. As Jalen came off the screen, the Warriors trapped him aggressively. Şengün read it perfectly, slipping into the short roll. That forced Podziemski to rotate over, creating a 2-on-1 advantage on the weak side. Şengün made the right decision, kicking it out to Dillon, who knocked down the open three. This exact action is something I pointed out in my previous video, where I broke down how it was one of the most effective plays the Rockets ran in both Games 1 and 2, and why they needed to run more of in Game 3. It's been the bread and butter, and so far, the Warriors have had no real answer for it. A huge reason for this is because the Warriors almost never switch when defending this action. Instead, they either trap the ball handler or sit back in drop coverage, and both looks play right into Şengün's hands. Thanks to Şengün's elite vision and playmaking ability out of the short roll, these pick and rolls have consistently turned into high-quality scoring opportunities. In fact, the Rockets went right back to this exact setup on their very next possession. This time, Gary Payton was defending the ball handler, playing what's known as ice coverage, where the on-ball defender tries to force the ball handler away from the screen and into the help defender, in this case, Looney. As I pointed out in my previous breakdown, the Rockets, especially Jalen and Şengün, have been masterful at punishing this specific defensive look over the last 2 games. And once again, they execute it to perfection here. As Şengün moved into position to set the screen, Jalen made a quick read of the defense. Before Şengün could even fully establish the pick, Jalen exploded downhill, catching Payton slightly off guard and creating just enough separation. That instant opened up a clean lane for Jalen to slip a perfect bounce pass to Şengün on the short roll, forcing the Warriors to foul Şengün as he barreled toward the rim. 2 successful possessions off the Jalen-Şengün pick and roll, the first leading to 3 points, the second earning a trip to the free throw line. Sure, both free throws were missed, but that's part of the game, something even the best coaching staff can't control. What is within their control, however, is how the team responds after those missed opportunities. On the very next trip down the floor, Payton fouled Dillon, sending him to the line where he calmly knocked down both free throws. Just like that, the Rockets had cut the Warriors' lead to a single point, the closest they would get for the rest of the game. But it's what happened after those free throws that started to unravel everything. Instead of sticking with the Jalen-Şengün pick and roll, the action that had been their bread and butter, not just in this game but throughout the entire series, the Rockets opted for something different, a Dillon ISO against Pods. Dillon got a step on Pods but was met at the rim by Draymond, who swatted the shot away. Now, to be fair, Dillon had been effective in ISO post-ups earlier in the series, especially in Game 2 when he consistently punished smaller defenders. But in Game 3, perimeter ISOs for Dillon had been extremely ineffective. Leading up to this moment, there had already been 4 Dillon ISO possessions in this game, all of which ended either in missed shots or turnovers. In a close game, the last thing you want is to lean on a play that hasn't worked all night. Yet that's exactly what the Rockets did. Predictably, the result was the same, an empty trip. The score still sat at a 6-point margin heading into their next offensive possession. And just when you'd expect them to go back to their bread and butter, the Şengün pick and roll, they threw a curveball. Instead, they ran a Spain pick and roll with Şengün and Jalen. Now, a Spain pick and roll is just a regular pick and roll, but with a twist. A third offensive player steps in to set an additional screen on the defender guarding the roller, essentially to cause confusion for the defense. Guys get confused, matchups get scrambled, and usually someone ends up wide open. But in this case, Jalen, the third player, doesn't actually set the screen. Instead, he reads the defense brilliantly, sprinting out to the three-point line. It's a smart adjustment, knowing the Warriors would likely switch the action, with Draymond picking up Şengün and Pods switching onto Jalen. However, even with Jalen's quick read, Pods was even quicker. He stays attached, forces Jalen into a tough, contested three, and it rims out. Not exactly the shot you want at that moment. Jalen's been shooting just 33.3% from deep this series and only 28.8% on contested threes during the regular season. So heavily contested Jalen 3? Well, that's a win for the Warriors every time. A better option is to keep Jalen spaced in the corner or on the wing and run a simple Van Vliet-Şengün pick and roll instead. Based on how Golden State was guarding it all night, Şengün would have had the short roll wide open. I've already talked at length, both earlier in this video and in my previous breakdown, about just how elite Şengün is as a short roll decision maker. And once again, this was a situation tailor-made for his brilliance. Şengün would have drawn a Warriors defender out of position off the short roll, then either kicked it out to an open shooter on the perimeter or hit a teammate cutting to the basket for an easy layup. Either way, it would have created a far better shot than the one Houston actually ended up with on this possession. To really drive home how effective the Şengün pick and roll can be, look no further than the very next possession after Jalen's missed three. This time, the Rockets ran it with Amin and Şengün. The Warriors tried to ice the pick and roll, a tactic that, frankly, hasn't worked for them all series long, and the result? A smooth Şengün jumper right in rhythm. But after that, surprisingly, the Rockets went away from it. They didn't go back to the Şengün pick and roll, even after Dillon fouled out and was replaced by Jabari. Even then, they didn't pivot to one of their other reliable options, the Jabari post-up, which had been one of their most efficient offensive sets during the regular season, something I covered in greater detail in my previous video. If you want to dive deeper into that, I'll have that video linked at the top right corner of your screen. And instead of sticking with what had worked earlier, the Rockets ran 4 straight ISO possessions, converting just 2 out of 4 attempts. But what's even more telling is how they scored. Both made shots came off broken actions. One was the result of an insane over-the-shoulder kickout from Amin to Van Vliet, who knocked down a corner 3. The other came when Van Vliet drove inside and tossed up a lob to Amin, a play Draymond actually defended really well, but Amin stayed with it and scored off the putback. Meanwhile, the 2 misses came from Amin drives where he drew help and dished to Şengün, and Şengün missed both looks. Now, at first glance, you might think, hey, those are shots you'd want Şengün taking, and normally you'd be right. But at this point in the game, it's all about generating the absolute best shot possible. Remember earlier, the pick and roll between Amin and Şengün? That action created just enough separation for Şengün to get a clean look over Draymond. But on these late-game drives, Şengün never got that space. No separation, no clean shot, and that's why late-game play calling is so critical. On the other hand, the Warriors stuck with actions that had worked for them all game long. The Rockets didn't. And that ultimately was the difference down the stretch in Game 3. But it's not over. Game 4 is coming up, and if the Rockets can tighten up their offense, really commit to the actions that have been effective all series, there's no doubt they can even things up. Game 4 is going to be massive for the Rockets, and personally, I'll be locked in, focusing even more on their offensive execution than their already solid defense. Hopefully, today's breakdown helped shine a light on why the Rockets' offense stalled late in Game 3 and what adjustments they can make for Game 4. As always, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate all the support, and I can't wait to break down more film with you next time.
And he comes up with the steal. Suffocating defense. 3-on-1 the other way. The lob, the finish by the high flyer, Jalen Green.